Hey guys, it's Cece and welcome to my fall seasonal wrap-up. So my fall seasonal wrap-up, or my seasonal wrap-ups in general, are just at the end of 3 months I tell you all of the books that I read in those 3 months and give you just like my base rating for them, and I let you know what my top 5 books were that I read during that time. So this is for the months of September, October, and November, and I read 27 books in that time, which is pretty good. I think I've had slightly better seasons, but I'm very pleased with my 27 books. So let me just quickly first go through and tell you what rating I gave each of these books before I tell you my top 5. So first up, we're going to start with September. The first thing that I read in the month of September was Lies We Tell Ourselves by Robin Talley, and I gave that book a 4 out of 5 stars. After that, I read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, which I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read The Girl in 6E by A.R. Torrey, which I gave 3 out of 5 stars. Then I reread 13 Little Blue Envelopes by Maureen Johnson, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars, followed by City of the Mind by Penelope Lively, which I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness, which I gave a 3.5, 3.75 out of 5 stars. After that, I read Two Boys Kissing by David Levithan, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. And the final book that I read in the month of September was A Study in Scarlet by Arthur Conan Doyle, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. Alright, moving into October, the first thing that I read in October was Vicious by V.E. Schwab, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read Openly Straight by Bill Konigsberg, which I gave 2.5 out of 5 stars. Following that, I read Anna and the French Kiss by Stephanie Perkins, which I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. I then read Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, which I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. After that, I read The Profession of Violence by John Pearson, which I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read Vile Bodies by Evelyn Waugh, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. After that, I finished up reading Bitch Planet Volume 1, which is by Kelly Sue DeConnick and Valentine DeLandro, and I gave the entire volume 4.5 out of 5 stars. And finally, in the month of October, I read The Art of Being Normal by Lisa Williamson, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. In November, I started out with Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell, which I gave a 3.75 out of 5 stars. I then read Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I read Ask the Passengers by A.S. King, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I read 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff, which I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor, and I gave that book 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Every Day by David Levithan, which I also gave 4 out of 5 stars. I called November my 4 out of 5 stars month. I don't know. That's just the kind of month it was. After that, I read The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman, which I gave a 3.5-ish stars. Then I read A Stranger Came Ashore by Molly Hunter, which I gave 2 out of 5 stars. And finally, I reread The Thief Lord by Cornelia Funke. I know I pronounce it incorrectly. It's really difficult for me to remember to say Funke because I've been saying funk for so long. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, those are my books that I read in the fall season, and I think I had a fairly decent season. I think that it could have been better. I had a lot of mid-range books, but I think that I really enjoyed this season of reading. So now I am going to tell you my top 5 books that I read for the whole season. Yeah, let's do that. First up, coming in at number 5. At number 5, I've got Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. This was just a really fantastic first book in a fantasy trilogy, I believe, that I think is going to be amazing. I loved the main character. I loved all the side characters. I loved the Mace. Thought he was great. And I think that this has so much room to grow, and I really, really loved this book. Coming in at number 4. At number 4, I've got 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff. I read this book for class, but it has wound up being one of my favorite books that I've ever read in general. I just completely fell in love with this book. It is a non-fiction book. It's a series of letters that were sent back and forth between a woman in New York and a bookseller in London, and they just formed a friendship over books. and I absolutely adored this book. It was so sweet, it was so wonderful to read, and it just filled me with such bookish joy for the entire time I was reading it, and I definitely want my own copy, by the way. And so yeah, this definitely is one of my favorite books that I read this season. Coming in at number 3. At number 3, I've got Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This was the final book by Gillian Flynn that I have not read. I haven't read her short story, but this was her final like full novel that I hadn't read, and I absolutely loved it. I loved it. This book is really creepy, and really the way that I decided to think about it, because it is definitely small town, it's small town, but it's like if someone took a small town and turned it up by about 11 notches. So it's just more concentrated, like it's not super realistic with some of the characters, but I just think it's those characters that you see in small town cranked up a lot of notches, and that's why I loved it so much, is because I loved that element of it. I loved how creepy it was. I loved how it was written. I love Gillian Flynn's writing and her female characters that are all different forms of completely insane. And so I definitely really loved this book. Coming in at number 2. At number 2, I've got Vicious by V.E. Schwab. This is a book about two people who met in college, and they're really drawn to each other, and somehow they think that they have figured out a way to give people superpowers, and then 10 years later, which is when the book is also being told, one of the men is just getting out of prison, and he's going to find his friend from college who he's now facing as like his enemy. This book is chock full of really dark characters, definitely a lot of morally gray characters. It was my introduction to V.E. Schwab, and I will definitely be reading more because wow. And finally, coming in at number 1. Coming in at number 1, I have got Two Boys Kissing by David Levithan. This is possibly one of my favorite books ever, let alone this season, let alone this year. I thought it was absolutely amazing. It is sort of difficult to describe. It is basically the lives of a few different gay teenagers in our modern day, but it's narrated by a Greek chorus of the generation of gay men who were lost to AIDS. So, I mean, that's already going to be some, like, intense emotions, but this was just a fantastic book. Love the way it was written. You can read it in, like, one sitting, which is what I did, and I cried, and it was beautiful. So there you go. Those are my top 5 books that I read in the fall. Let me know down below what were some of your favorite books that you read this season, and I can't wait to read them. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!